Good afternoon, everybody. So welcome to our event today. So we are very excited to have everybody with us. We have Disability Network of Eastern Michigan and Michigan Rehabilitation Services bringing you information from the best of the best when it comes to businesses in our community. We want to provide great information and maybe educate you a little bit on some industries that you weren't quite familiar with. Maybe we're kind of wondering whether or not they're a good fit for you, and to also just understand what's in your community. So DNEM and MRS bring to you today a panelist of businesses to just again speak to you. You're going to be invited to share any questions via our question and answer section, which is at the bottom of your screen. You'll just click on the Q&A button and you'll be able to type in your questions, at which point the panelists and presenters will be able to see those questions, read them out loud to the panelists, and also get some answers for you. We do have one panelist that will have to exit early today. So please continue to ask those questions. And if they are specific to the manufacturing field, we'll get those questions answered for you at a later time and send you those responses. Please keep your microphones muted if you are part of our audience. And if you do feel more comfortable asking a question that way, you are welcome to unmute at a time that you'll be invited to do so. We have sign language interpreters and captionists on board with us today, just to provide accommodations for those that may need them. You will be able to view them. They are pinned for your viewing. And if you do have any muting issues, please again, enter some information in the Q&A and we'll do our very best to try to help you behind the scenes. So without further ado, we are going to allow our panelists to each introduce themselves. So we will go ahead and start. We have Mr. Doug Worley from Secure Door. So thank you very much to our panelists. Go ahead, introduce yourselves, tell a little bit about your company and your industry as a whole, and we'll just move through the panelists at that rate and get to know you guys a little bit better. So thank you very much for spending your time with us today.
All right. Did you say I was going first?
Okay. Right ahead, Doug.
All right. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Doug Worley. I am with Secure Door, and we are a skilled trade service and installation company of commercial industrial doors and loading dock equipment. So you basically, if you go to any type of building, whether it's a warehouse, the front door of an office building, to a hospital, to a school, anything you could think of. If it has a commercial industrial door, whether it's a big overhead door or entry door, we service those types of material. That's what our industry does. And I'm a founding partner. I currently serve as the director of operations for the company. Been in business 13 years. And our industry is always in demand. In every single building sector, we basically are a recognized skilled trade, but not necessarily like a plumber or electrician or a carpenter or anything like that. But our trade's very unique because we're in demand year round. A lot of our technicians work 24/7, depending on the service of our client's request. Some of the companies that we do work for is like the city of Detroit. We take care of all the fire stations. We take care of all the police departments, all the parking garages downtown for Bedrock, all the service centers and power plants for Detroit Energy, the water plants. So these are the kind of things I like to throw out there to help people wrap their mind around an industry that I know so well, but most people probably have never really heard of. And it's a great industry to be a part of. We have, job opportunities from sales engineers to service technicians. Just like every other business, you need all kinds of support staff, from accounting, customer service, you name it. So I thought I would just hop on here and introduce myself and our company to you guys and see if I can help out in any way, if anyone has any questions.
Thank you very much, Doug. Chet will go ahead in your direction next. Chet, you're muted.
Okay, I'm muted. All right, here I am. Hello, my name's Chet Latra. I'm currently a process engineer for a company called HTI. HTI is a company that is a T1 supplier for the big three or other T1 companies. Our big thing is we basically make manufacturing machines or assembly lines to build cars. We're in the automotive field. Majority of we do some industrial, but mostly automotive. One of the things that automotive is, well, before I get into that, I have 18 years experience as a process engineer. I've seen from the plant level up into management kind of role. So my experience, I know there's a lot of opportunities out there for anyone that wants to get into automotive. One of the things that we are lacking is skilled trades. So if you come off, well, you get hired in, you can start off just as a drafter, and then you can work your way up into production supervisor or possibly even a process engineer like myself. You don't necessarily need any college stuff, but if you work your way up, hands-on experience, that's the best. So for example, you could take different routes. One example that I wanted to bring up is you can start off as a operator running equipment, work your way up to be a group leader, which you oversee the whole assembly line, and then work your way up to be a supervisor. Another route you can do is you can start off as a like a milling operator, and then work your way up to be a maintenance mechanic. And a lot of people think that to get an automotive you need college, and that is not true. There's a lot of people that work at my plant with no college at all. So there's a lot of opportunities out there. It's just a matter of you just want to get your foot into the door and work with the right people. You can move up and do anything in automotive. With that, if you have any questions, specific questions, I'd be happy to answer. Thank you for allowing me to present.
All right, thank you, Chet. I don't see any current questions in the Q&A session or section. At this point, I'll let you know if any hop on here for you specifically. And thank you very much for taking your time. I know that you needed to exit. So when you do need to exit, go ahead and go, and we'll get you those questions at a later time if they don't pop up before you leave.
Yeah, Vicky, that's great. Thank you. Thank you,
yes,
everyone.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we will go ahead over to Neil.
Hey everybody, I'm Neil Brodzik. I own a company called Arrow Information Services. We do IT managed services. IT managed services are really computer and network phone system related services or connectivity services that relate to businesses and user support and process support in their office. And I've been doing it since 1998. So I'm in my 24th year, I think, maybe 25th. Before I was with Arrow Information Services, I worked for a tier 1 automotive supplier and did IT services for them. I started directly out of high school. Before I even went to college, I had my first job in IT, and I learned on the job. Ultimately, I did a certification track, and then I went to college while I was working, and I went on to do graduate studies while working my current job. And I enjoy my job. I enjoy part of IT and a lot of the service related industries. You get to mix with multiple people from different backgrounds and different offices at different locations. And I like that variety of having different relationships with different organizations and being able to go out and not be in the same place every day and do the same thing every day, day after day, necessarily talk to the same person. You get to kind of mix that up. And I enjoy that variety in what I do. I also enjoy the problem solving. I enjoy the communicating with people and being able to see the results of work that you just worked on. So IT can be a very diverse career. There's all kinds of opportunities that are available, everything from cybersecurity to programming. And if you guys have any questions related to any of those fields, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Neil. And we really appreciate your time. So John, we were going to go ahead in your direction.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. I appreciate being invited to speak. My name's John Scarcella. I work in home mortgages and financing for Rocket Mortgage, local Detroit company. Very unique company to work for. A lot of things that some of the other presenters have mentioned apply here too. You don't need a college degree, which is a kind of a misconception in the banking world. You have to be licensed, but you don't need to have any formal education in finance. So instantly kind of remove some barriers to entry into what can be a very fruitful career. Something else that is very interesting about the company that I work for, they call themselves the family of companies because it's not just banking. There are opportunities at Rocket Mortgage outside of finance that lean more towards sales. They do car sales, event planning, things all over the city. So I've been doing this for a better part of 5 years now. If anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer about banking or any other potential opportunities at the family of companies. So thanks very much again for having me.
Well, thank you very much, John. We're very happy to have you with us as well. So we'd like to start with just a couple general questions to all of the panelists. You are being asked, what do you find most satisfying about the work that you do? And we'll go ahead in the same order that we did the intros. Doug, that will put you up first.
Satisfying is for me is basically like it always comes back to the customer. A lot of times when we show up to a call, so if a customer calls on us, they need us. They have an immediate need that needs to be filled. And when we show up, we're sort of like the heroes, the superhero there to save the day. And that's very self-rewarding for not only the employees, but all the way up to myself, because it makes you feel good when what you're doing matters and that you're actually able to help other companies continue running their business. If you think for a second, like if somebody's door and loading dock breaks on the back of their grocery store, if we don't get that fixed for them, they're not going to be able to receive truck shipments in, which causes, you can imagine the delay what can happen from just a small minor hiccup of operational equipment. They might not be able to stock the shelves. They might not be able to have employees come into work because they don't have enough materials to do. And you could use that analogy in any sector, from manufacturing all the way down to technological companies. So it's rewarding for us to be able to give the customer a valuable service.
Well, that's wonderful. All of us appreciate the work that you do, and we need to get something. So, all right, Neil, question for you. Same question. What do you find most satisfying about your work?
So I enjoy the problem solving. I enjoy interacting with different people, and kind of like what Doug was saying, right? There's some you get a positive feeling when you can actually resolve someone's issue and help them go about their day and get their stuff done. And I enjoy that about my job. I work with hundreds of great people that might be stressed in their initial call or under duress in the immediate moment, but ultimately, once you're able to get through some of that and actually resolve their issues, it's actually pretty rewarding. So I think that's the best part of my job is being able to interact and having some variety in that interaction. I enjoy that. So.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, same question for you, John.
Really to echo what a lot of you have said, I just really enjoy the impact that I'm able to have with my clients. Kind of on a broader level, I get to help people all day, every day, rather that's helping my clients or helping the team that I manage or my coworkers develop. In finance specifically, a lot of times you're talking to people that are kind of at the end of their rope. They're looking to use their equity from their home to maybe pay off debt or help their kids go to college. They've exhausted other options. And with Rocket specifically being such a large company, we do have some abilities to do things that other lenders can't. So when you talk to somebody who has kind of given up on helping their kids pay for college or thought that debt consolidation was something that was completely out of reach for them, and then you can give them, $100,000 or save them $1,000 a month by consolidating debt. It's really, life-changing things that you're able to help people do, and it's incredibly, incredibly rewarding.
Well, thank you. And in today's market, that is key. So thank you so much for what is so satisfying for you. Now we're going to go to the opposite end of things. We'll start with you again, Doug. What do you find the most challenging about your work? And just as an added question here, kind of piggybacking on that, is how has the pandemic helped or hindered with some of those challenges?
That's a good question. The most challenging aspect is for our business is the service side of it. So on our installation side, it's sort of easy to try to schedule a project, on a calendar system when we're going to start a job. But the most challenging is managing a service. Our phones are ringing nonstop all day asking for us to come out and service them. And there's a window of time that we have to be able to execute that in. And sometimes we have after hour service, so we do emergency service after hours, and it can be a challenge to try to keep up with all of that and make sure that we meet our customers' expectations, and really try to stay on top of the requests that are coming in and make sure that we're being respectful of our clients' time, because everybody's waiting on you. So that's our biggest challenge, just basically time management, which we try to improve upon. Every day, we're using multiple tools and ways. And what was the second part of the question, Vicki?
How has the pandemic helped or hindered your company within some of those challenges?
Okay, well, that's a great question. So it's helped us because we basically have been I forgot the name they were using when the pandemic first started, but we've been an in-demand service. We've never really stopped working. We've been working ever since day one of the pandemic. As you can imagine, fire stations still have to operate, police stations still have to operate, grocery stores and et cetera, et cetera. So it's helped us because, quite honestly, we've gotten busier through the pandemic. We're one of the blessed, lucky people that have been able to actually grow and expand our business throughout the pandemic. How it's hindered us a little bit is the face-to-face time with customers has been a little bit challenging. A lot of our clientele prefer to meet in person, and don't necessarily have all the technological savvy of understanding how to use the Zoom calls and things like that. And of course, trying to work around a lot of the PPE and testing for COVID that our technicians are required to be on site at a lot of these facilities. So that has been something that was a challenge for us, but we've done the best we could to fulfill all of the requests of our clients.
Well, thank you. And it sounds like you have really taken some of those challenges in stride and really adapted. Okay, Neil, same question to you. What are some of the challenges that you face and how has the pandemic helped or hindered you adapt to those challenges?
So kind of like what Doug was saying. So IT is really a service-based, a service and installation-based, path. So time management is always difficult when you're trying to schedule jobs for install and then people's, stuff breaks and needs to be fixed immediately. So you have to be able to balance that. So time management is one of those things that's tough to do, and that can cause stress. For me, I have not that it's every day or anything like that, but sometimes you have to work an evening or you have to work a weekend. You trade positions with people for weekends where they might be offering support and said you can do it, or so there is some of that time management component that can be stressful at times. As far as the pandemic goes, I think what Doug was fishing for was essential workers, right? So when the pandemic first hit, so all of us, and especially in IT, you were essential, right? So you were light on PPE and you could do whatever you could do remotely, but ultimately you had to go back out on site. And we service medical offices and attorneys' offices and manufacturing plants that were making some of the PPE. And when the pandemic first hit, you really had to adapt to those challenges and find a way to still be able to get your work done. For us, we also had the added complexity of, we had a lot of people who weren't ready for remote work, and all of a sudden they had to remote work. And the group here today putting on the event for Disability Network of Eastern Michigan was one of those customers. They went from a workforce of 30 to 50 people who ultimately primarily worked in the office, and then they had to turn around within just a couple of weeks and say, hey, we can work remotely at this point and safely still offer the same level of services that they had previously. So I think the
Neil
pandemic
made that happen for us.
and we had to do it quickly, right? So it was one of those things that was like we had to figure it out. And I think that it comes back to with some of the challenges and opportunities that presented themselves in the pandemic is that it is a I don't want to say life altering, but process altering time, right? So it's a new time for businesses where remote work is becoming possible. Pre-pandemic, even at IT with service desks and help desks and things like that, we were always on site. We always brought people in. They sat in the office, always at their same desk, doing the job. It's not that they couldn't do it remotely. They just didn't. We wanted them in the office. We wanted to be able to see what they were doing. And now with the pandemic, some of those jobs aren't going back to work. So like if you want a work at home job where you can still make a good living, IT is one of those places where there are a lot of help desk opportunities where you don't have to go into the office. You can stay home with it. So it was a double-edged sword when the pandemic hit, but hopefully the result is a positive path forward. So that's all I got.
No, thank you very much for that. John, same question in your direction.
Yeah, I mean, definitely unique challenges with as within every position kind of across the board. So it does require a license to do the job that I have. And it's a pretty difficult exam, but it's if I can pass it, anyone can pass it. I never in a million years would have thought that I would be in a banking career when I was in college taking my math proficiency exam for the 4th time. And here I am, 10 years later as a mortgage professional. So it's definitely possible, but that's, one challenge at the beginning of your career. And then, even though it is a federally licensed position, it's still like a sales job. So there's definitely the daily struggles of working with clients and trying to convince them to trust you and that you're the right person for the job that they're looking to have done, and likely talking to 10 other people just like you. During the pandemic, it became a definitely a hurdle to the work from home technology. This is far from my first Zoom call right now, but when we were first starting from home, I said, I don't even own a computer and I don't know what Zoom means. So definitely some hurdles. And I super appreciate people like Neil that helps myself and 10,000 other people get set up for success. It only took about 24 hours and we were up and running. So challenges added by the pandemic were just really just an incredible increase in volume. So obviously interest rates were very low. People were buying, people were refinancing, people refinanced, some people more than once during the pandemic because rates just kept going down. So in a job that was already kind of a, 60-hour, 6-day a week kind of work week, it definitely popped up during the pandemic to like 80 hours a week, 7 days a week, because people don't stop buying houses or refinancing houses because it's a Saturday when rates are low. It's time sensitive. So that was probably the biggest, that combined with the work from home technology was probably the biggest hurdle for sure.
Well, thank you very much for that. Okay, question. I'm starting with Doug again. How is your industry expected to increase or decrease in terms of demand over the next 20 years? From your perspective.
From my perspective, I would imagine that we're going to only increase. So, I mean, considering that basically you have, say industries like Amazon are exploding, you know what I mean? Where they have these humongous factories, and we're seeing a lot more of this direct to consumer type of businesses that are starting to pop up because the pandemic has taught a lot of people that they don't have to leave the house necessarily to have materials delivered to them, and all these types of industries that are a lot bigger now than they were 2 or 3 years ago. That has caused an influx of business for us. I mean, there's been multiple warehouses being constructed, which we have to do installations for. And then as far as service goes, I mean, quite honestly, until they build a robot that can go out in a truck and fix doors at fire stations at 2:30 in the morning, we're always going to be in demand. And our industry is growing with the economy, you know, so as infrastructure bills get passed and buildings get built and things like this, it just continues to grow. It's no different for us than it would be for any other type of construction trade.
Thank you, Doug. Okay, Neil, you're next. Same question.
I'm with Doug again. So the IT industry is expanding. Every day things get more and more automated. And for IT, that's a huge increase, right? It's the more people get involved, the more programmers it takes, the more low voltage technician it takes to get the stuff working properly, the more wireless technicians it takes to make sure that everything stays online. And it's, to me, it's a rapidly expanding time. We're entering the age of what they call the Internet of Things, right? Where everything's connected, everything's interconnected. And IT jobs are kind of in the middle of that connectivity. We control those communications in most instances. So I think it's definitely a field that if you enter into, will be around in 50 years still. And the one challenge with that is that IT is constantly evolving and it evolves pretty quickly. So there's a lot of learning and training involved in staying on top of training. Not that the other fields don't have the same type of thing, they're like continuing education and things like that, but IT is one of those things that if you enjoy problem solving and you enjoy learning new things, you'll find yourself entertained and occupied for a long period of time. So it's not going anywhere.
Yes, thank you, Neil. Same question for you, John.
Yeah, banking is it's a unique field or industry. I mean, people are always going to need roofs over their roofs over their head. People are always going to need cars to drive to work, and people are always going to either be saving or spending money. So, banking is a pretty bulletproof industry. I mean, 2008 showed us that nothing is truly immune, but legislation that was passed at that time has really made the industry pretty safe. With rates where they're at right now, what goes up or what goes down must go back up. So it's definitely not always going to be as easy of an industry as it is to be successful in right now, but it's not going anywhere. It's a growing industry always.
Yes, thank you very much, John. And I do have a text from Chet from the manufacturing. He said he had to get off of there, but he did have a little bit of time. So I texted him some questions. And he said, despite the myth that manufacturing is going downhill, it's actually quite busy right now in a field that is not often looked at in terms of interest for people looking to enter into a career field. Manufacturing is not all dirty. It's not all hot. Sometimes you can really move into other directions when you take a entry-level production job. So he's hoping that this session will help people realize that there are lots of different types of manufacturing, some very light, some very heavy, some indoors, some outdoors, and that it is just growing as the world changes. So he just wants people to think about manufacturing as a career pathway that maybe didn't think so before. And he would be happy to talk with somebody if they did have some specific questions as well. So we could connect you guys together if you needed that. There is a question that just came in. This question is specific to you, Neil. Laura asked if IT trains from the very beginning. So I'm assuming that would be a question maybe about qualifications or education that would be required, or is there some opportunity to start entry level and work your way up?
There's definitely an opportunity to start entry level and work your way up. That's how I started. And most employers, especially like large help desks and stuff, they have online training portals where you can go and watch videos about all kinds of different IT topics. We use one internally called Pluralsight, and Pluralsight gives you the ability to do everything from Microsoft training to CompTIA certification training to different programming languages. And there's 100 different programming languages that people can study. So you can find areas of interest to you, and you can start at an entry level position, and most places will have training readily available for you. It's not like it was When I first started in the late 1990s, you had to actually go to a class, get on a plane, get in a car, go to Atlanta, sit down at a manufacturer's table, and they would kind of explain the stuff to you. And now it's not like that. With Pluralsight and online education sources, every employer gets the opportunity to bring that back at a cost that is reasonable. And you'll find that most places will often pay for certification classes, give you the opportunity to do training, give you the opportunity to do training while you're on site. And not that you'll be doing it all day, every day, but let's say that you have 8 hours in a day and you'll take 5 help desk calls. Each one of them will take an hour. Well, it still gives you 3 hours that you can go through and put in whatever training down, whatever curriculum path you want. And a lot of times employers will direct that training, but to things specifically that they need. But it's one of those things that you definitely have opportunities to move in that direction from an entry level position.
All right, thank you very much for that, Neil. Okay, one question for all of the panelists. What would you describe as a typical day and typical schedule for an employee? And Doug, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Typical day for employee for field techs would be reporting to our office at approximately 7 a.m. We would then basically load up, go out and work, probably return back to the office between the hours of like 3 and 5 p.m. And then that would be a very normal day for a technician. Of course, there's the ability for additional service to come in, have to go in after hours on emergencies, have to work nights, have to work weekends, but that all comes with the territory. An average normal day would be like 7 to 5. As far as our office staff is concerned, we start at 8 a.m. You would be working in a typical office environment and be done by 5 p.m. for the most part. And that's pretty much it.
All right, thank you, Doug. Same question to you, John.
I mean, you hear bankers hours as a saying all the time, and it's kind of a what we aim for. But like I had mentioned earlier, people don't stop buying houses just because it's a Saturday or because the home that they might want to make an offer on got listed at 8 o'clock at night. So during more normal times before the pandemic, hopefully whatever after the pandemic looks like, it's usually somewhere 9 to 6, 8 to 6, something like that, depending on what specialty you work in, with the occasional weekend. It is like a production-based role as well, so there's goals, there are opportunities to work outside of your normal schedule if you're not on pace to make your goal. So it's kind of whatever you're willing for it to be, they'll always let you work. There's always people that need the help. So, but average schedules are usually something like 9 to 7, 8 to 6, somewhere in that window.
All right, thank you, John. Okay, the next question are for all 3 panelists as well. How would you measure success in an employee? What do you really look for to call somebody successful for you? Okay, Doug, we'll go ahead and start with you.
It has some range to it, depending on what position that person holds. But at the end of the day, a successful employee of Secure Door is going to be someone who's a team worker that can work together with his coworkers for the purpose of solving our goal, which is taking care of our customers. A lot of the things that probably go well with most companies is what we're looking for: people that show up to work on time, that are professional, that are excellent communicators, not only verbally but also digitally and in writing and tangible as well. So I mean, really just being able to be where you're supposed to be and be on time, good attitude, half glass full, and a great communicator would make anybody successful in our field.
All right, thank you, Doug. So it's not all about the technical aspect. Okay, Neil, same question for you.
So oddly enough, in IT, it's not all about the technical aspect either. There are always problems that you can't fix in IT, or that have to go back to the manufacturer for whatever reason. It wasn't programmed right, or there's a bug or whatever. The truth is, what we look for and what we consider to be successful are some of the soft skills, like Doug was talking about, right? Communication, interpersonal communication, team building. The truth is, we want to see people who are interested in helping somebody else solve a problem. So sometimes that's really just about taking responsibility and ownership, right? So we want someone who wants to be involved in that process, who wants to be involved in fixing the problem. And to us, the most successful people are always the people who want to get engaged and want to help and want to be an active participant in the process, and not somebody who just wants to rubber stamp something and move it on to the next person. Like for IT service desk things, it sometimes will escalate tickets. It'll start out with an entry level person and then move to a second tier, and then potentially even a third tier. And we want everybody at every one of the stages of that process trying to make sure that they really try and solve the problem and understand the problem and listen to the customer. And those are the people who ultimately end up being the most successful, is that they can get engaged. You do not have to fix every problem. You don't even have to understand every problem. But if you're genuinely interested in, hey, I can help the customer, I can get them to the right person, I can listen to what they're saying and then try and interpret that and get it to somebody who can actually make an actionable decision or take an actionable action. That's really what a successful person does in our line of work anyways. So don't have to fix everything.
Yeah, thank you, Neil. So John, same question for you.
Thank you. So, I mean, obviously what Doug said and what Neil said, it goes for any industry, people that are on time, people that are articulate, people who can, manage their time well and talk to other people. That's going to be a heads up in any industry. We have a saying at our company that says obsessed with doing the right thing. And when I'm looking at, especially, the access that we have to people's personal information, the ability that we have to help people, I'm defining a good employee by someone who really is obsessed by doing the right thing and that does what's right by their clients, even if it's maybe not what's going to put the most money in their own pocket, or with a goal-based position. Success as an employee by your employer is measured by how often you're hitting your goal, how long it takes you to get to that goal, how often you exceed that goal. So that's definitely something that's looked at. But for me personally, it's the way that you get there. It's the way that you meet those numbers. And if you're doing that through honest communication, through being open to feedback and to coaching and to doing what's right by your clients, that's to me 100% what makes you successful.
Thank you. I'm definitely sensing a trend here. It's all about what you contribute and not necessarily what you know. So you can be taught things, but it's what you bring to the table from the beginning that really matters. So thank you guys for all sharing that. So hopefully everybody else is seeing that pattern as well. Okay, there's a question here. What types of skills would make an entry level hire the most likely to succeed? So maybe, I mean, you touched on a lot of that in terms of what we all call soft skills, things that somebody brings to the table. But what would you be looking for in a new candidate, or what do you wish you could tell somebody at an interview that would help them understand, what you would want them to know how to do when they start? And Doug, go ahead and take that away.
Okay, so for me, for a good technical apprentice, what I would be looking for is somebody who has some mechanical inclination, somebody who understands how tools work. It has some general idea of how construction works, maybe some light electrical background, basically some general. You'd have to be somewhat of somebody who's interested in in like an engineering type of construction. I'm going to figure this out type of problem solving person. And of course, I'm looking for somebody that I think it kind of goes without saying these days, but basically somebody who can pass a background check, has a valid driver's license, all that kind of stuff, can pass the drug test, and being mechanically inclined, technologically savvy. All those things, which I think are probably very normal things that most employers would want for at least my trade in the trades, would be exactly what we're looking for in our industry.
Thank you, Doug. Same question for you, Neil.
So we hire for two different types of positions. The first one would be like a service support desk, and the second one being installers who would actually be on the road doing communications work and running cable and that kind of thing. So the requirements are usually a little bit different. So for installers, we want a clean background check. If you're going to go on site, you have to be able to drive a vehicle. You have to be able, you have to have a clean driving record. We want you to be able to lift 50 pounds and move stuff around. And a lot of times those things will even outweigh some of the people who come in with, degrees or certifications that ultimately may not apply to that line of work. On the help desk side of things, ultimately, we're really looking for some type of experience with operating systems or networking or security, depending on the type of position that we're placing for. So education around those specific areas is usually a good place to start for entry-level candidates. That helps put you down a path of where would you fit in and where could you start problem solving at. So.
Thank you. Same question for you, John.
For me, it's really like coachability. I want to know that the person that I'm going to be working with, or if I'm hiring someone, to me, they're the right person for the job if they're willing to learn. So I can teach anyone anything. There's training materials. There are, YouTube videos. You can learn how to do anything. You can read books about sales. You can read books about psychology, but you can't teach somebody to want to learn. So if they don't have that kind of fundamental drive to learn and take feedback and do better, then that's probably not the right fit for them. But that would really be the only thing that would stop me. 'Cause if you're willing to learn, then this is a job that anyone can do.
And thank you. Okay, now you guys need to put on your thinking caps for this one a little bit. So as you're thinking, and I can ask you a little bit easier question in the meantime, but while you're thinking, think of a really good employee that you've had or that you've seen. And if you thought to yourself, man, if they just fill in the blank, they would be an awesome employee, like they would just rock. So what set that person, kind of stuck there and as a good employee where, you still liked having them there, you liked their work, but what do you wish they would have done or changed or really kind of bumped up that would have made them just rock? So, and while you're kind of thinking of that person in mind, if you could just kind of revisit and share with the group a little bit about your company's mission or your company's vision. If some companies have a vision statement or mission statement, but really kind of like if you had to summarize your business in one sentence, give the company name again, and what was that one statement or one sentence or one mission that you'd like to share?
All right, so for Secure Door, we don't really have like a pre-written out mission statement, but the one thing that we always pride ourselves on is quality, craftsmanship, communication, and we are always here for you. And it's just, I know it's so hard. It's such an easy thing to say that, but in the contractor life, I'm sure Neil can probably appreciate this, considering I consider him a tradesman and a contractor in his field. Is that there's so many companies that are totally unreliable. And when you're dealing with a tradesman, we pride ourselves on ultimate professionalism, being on time, being courteous, always answering the phone, always returning emails. And it sounds like what I'm saying is like, duh, that's so easy, but it's not normal. And most people in these trades that I'm affiliated with, like electricians and plumbers and carpenters and masons and all these different types of trades that make up the world that I exist in, they're very unreliable. They're very unprofessional. And we try to stand out from that. And we try to really pride ourselves on making our company being the most professional, communicative company that we possibly can be.
And that's what I would say sets you aside from the rest. So, all right, Neil, same question for you, just kind of summarizing your company, your vision, mission, or just kind of what you pride yourself on.
So Arrow's official mission statement is that we deliver dynamic technology solutions to meet people's financial, strategic, and growth objectives. And the idea there is that we work with customers to really plan for what they want their IT objectives to be. So for instance, during the pandemic, we had people had an objective of a strategic objective of we need to keep working, right? We can't shut our doors. We have these essential services and we need to change the way that we're doing or change things that we're doing. And so that's really been our mission statement. To Doug's point, the truth is he's right. It is hard to find people who will do what they say they will do when they will do it. And some of it goes back to that time management thing that we had talked about in the beginning, getting people to show up early or on time to work. But it's one of those things that delivering a quality service and a quality product to your customers is a challenge and requires commitment, right? So ultimately, we want to make sure that the customers walk away satisfied and happy with the experience that they just had. And we often ask that and then make decisions based on what those responses are. So that in that two-way communication back and forth. So you don't always get the answer that you would hope to get, that somebody was satisfied, but you get the opportunity to then go back and address it internally and figure out, okay, what happened? Why didn't it work that way? And so I think those two things are pretty important. So.
Thank you. Same question at you, John. And then we're going to
Yeah.
come back around with the thinking cap question.
Cool. Yeah, same between what Doug and Neil had said. It's just so important to be able to do what you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. So our company's mission really is to make like affordable home financing accessible for everyone, and to make that as easy as and accessible as possible. I mean, if I make a mistake mistakes happen. Nobody's perfect. If I make a mistake with someone's mortgage, I might get a talking to, but I'm never going to get fired if it was an honest mistake. If I don't return a phone call within 24 hours, that's a fireable offense on the first offense, because we're obsessed with just treating people with respect and dignity, and making sure that it's as an easy of a process as possible. That's really our mission statement, is just to make this pain-free and accessible for anyone and everyone, and to make the process as open as communicative as they want it to be.
Awesome. Thank you. So sometimes it's not about making a mistake. It's how you handle it, but never, ever neglect the customer. So awesome. Thank you, guys. It sounds like there's so much consistency and overlap, even though your industries are different. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now back to the thinking cap question. And this helps you just kind of think about, taking that good employee and what would have made them great, or what could make them great if they're still with you.
So I thought about that while you mentioned it, and it's a good thinking question. For me, it would be leadership, because sometimes we have employees that are so good at what they do and they're so skilled at what they do, but they kind of lack the leadership part, to what John was kind of saying, how he can teach anybody anything. Some people that are so skilled at what they do in my industry, they lack the leadership ability to be able to teach them so that they can further along. And a lot of people get stuck in my industry in their specific level because they can't go any further, because they're holding themselves back by not teaching the people below them and bringing them upwards so that they can rise above them, if that makes any sense. So that's what I got.
Oh, absolutely. No, leadership at every level. You're right. So awesome. Thank you. Okay, Neil and John, same question for you guys.
So Vicki, when you brought that up, I started going back to all the great employees that I've had in the past and what was really the quality that made them great. And the truth is, they all cared about the customer. They all wanted to be involved. They all wanted to get a problem resolved, or they wanted to get them to the right spot. Even if the customer was angry or mad, or not even necessarily mad at them, but they all wanted to do whatever they could do to just satisfy the relationship or make sure that the customer got taken care of, because ultimately that's what we're here for. So every one of those great employees that I went back through, they weren't, they weren't guys with MBAs or, you know what I mean? They were people who ultimately were like, yeah, let me see what I can do. And even if it wasn't easy to do, they would find a way to get it in the hands of somebody that could do it, or at least give them a reason why that it couldn't happen. And they tried to do it with a smile on their face and ultimately try and make the customer happy. So I think that, and Doug kind of mentioned this too, is that you get to a point where, for a lot of people, you get to a point where you're like, okay, I don't want to be involved in that problem, or I don't want to deal with that issue, or I don't want to have to communicate, or I don't want to have to do this, or I don't want to have to do that. And sometimes that's the stuff that you need to push through that in the big picture to be able to say, yeah, I'm going to go to the next level. And you got to take those situations that aren't enjoyable for the everyday and say, I'm going to find a way to talk about it or do it or communicate it, and you don't have to get it right on the first time or anything, but it's just a process that you keep working through. So I think that's really what separates the great people from the good people. So.
All right, thank you. Same question to you, John.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to my former favorite colleague, and the keyword there is that they're former favorite colleague, somebody who was just a consistent client favorite. They had, 5-star reviews across the board, 100%. They hit their sales goals every single month, exceeded their sales goals every single month. Life of the party on our team, but they were late to work every single day. And I knew from them telling me that they were on like a final warning that if they were late again, they were going to be fired. And I said, I will call you every single morning and make sure that your alarm went off or make sure that you're awake, because I care about your success and I want to keep you on this team. And they were so offended that I would suggest that, that they couldn't manage their own schedule. And I said, okay, I made the offer. I'm sorry I offended you. I hope that things work out well for you. And they were late the next day and lost their job. So to me, it's, to think about how to answer that question specifically, it's like pride. I think if you can't take the help that is offered to you when you need it, or if you don't have the wherewithal to see that you need the help or ask for it, that's always going to be a barrier. So to me, it's just being too prideful and not accepting the help that that you need when it's offered.
All right, thank you. So now here's a flip side question to that one. Think of somebody, if it's applicable, and if not, go ahead and come up with a hypothetical person. What in your eyes would make a good employee kind of go downhill in your mind, or has happened? And Doug, we'll go ahead and start with you.
A good employee could go downhill if they feel that they're not valued enough. If I put them in with the wrong partner, and I don't recognize that the environment that I put them in potentially is causing them, a not so nice work environment. So in my industry, I think that would boil back down to just not being, you're not gonna be able to please everybody. It's a hard question. It's a little difficult for me to answer, but it's just a matter of me recognizing who fits best with whom, because like I said, we're all human beings and everybody has their own unique personality and how they carry themselves. Even though you try to have like a system in place where you want everybody to say this and do that, but everybody kind of does that in their own right. So everyone's not for everyone, but we've had employees before where they were the nucleus of the problem, where they were causing the morale to be lowered because of their presence. And I think for me, the best way I can answer that is to say that we would have to be mindful for people that would be downers, that would cause the team to basically sink and lose morale and lose that pride and lose that the enthusiasm of pleasing the customer and doing a great job.
Okay, thank you. Very profound statements in there, just for people to think about. So awesome. Thank you. And Neil and John, same question for you guys.
So that is a tough question to answer, because there's a lot of times people will move on when they when they're no longer satisfied or happy with their job, and they'll move on to a different opportunity. But the ones that really ring to me over the years, I've been doing this for 24 years, and some of them aren't even necessarily my employees, but sometimes people can become consumed with possessing something or having something, and you'll see fraud from time to time, right? Like, we have a couple of customers that are medical offices, and the doctors are financially well-to-do, and their office manager may not be as financially well-to-do, and all of a sudden they end up embezzling money or taking money that didn't belong to them. And I think if I had to look at it from my perspective, I would say fraud is certainly one of those things that would show you to the door real quick for any place where you went. And even if you were a great employee, that immediately moves you out the door. And whether or not some of that stuff is prosecuted or not, those are probably the biggest example, or the most numerous examples I can think of. But you have to make sure that your goals align with the organization's goals where you're at. And if you have financial pressure or opportunity, or you got to make sure that you stay in line with what the organization really wants you to do. And sometimes people don't. So, and that's a difficult question, I guess. So.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It seems like it was it rolled off your tongues so much easier, when we talked about it moving on up and what made somebody great versus not so great. So no, but thank you for the honesty and just trying to put some thought into that. It's good for people to hear that too, about, hey, I'm a good employee. What could make me go either way? So, and John, we'll finish that one up with you guys. And then we just have a couple of very quick things to cover, and then we will conclude our presentation. So John, go ahead and take that away.
Thank you. I think that something that I've seen firsthand where people start out as really great employees and just kind of crash and burn. So I work on a title-based role. So as you're hitting production goals and hitting seniority goals, you achieve a new title that comes with a larger bonus, and people get in their head like, oh, when I get to that top of that title, my job's going to be easier. And there are, you might work a better schedule or have, less expectations of time spent in the office, but it's still the same job, and you're still working under the same expectations with your clients. And when I see people's effort decrease as their title increases, and it goes from like a hustle to get that first title to by the time you're approaching your top tier title, where it's like, what's the minimum that I can do to get that title or to keep the title that I have? And that's it's not a sustainable work ethic. So I think that I do frequently see people maybe with selfish motivations achieving great results, and then pretty instantly backpedaling right when they get to the top, kind of start the climb back down to the bottom.
Oh, well, thank you. So I think some of the takeaways, and just thank you guys so much for your time. Takeaways is always, do your best, stay in your lane, do a great job, and always pay attention, be responsive, be responsible, be reliable, be dependable on what you're supposed to be doing, and just deliver great services to whoever your customers and clientele might be. So we do have a comment in the chat that's definitely noteworthy. People appreciated just your honesty about the job demands, how places don't necessarily have the reliability and dependability that you take pride in with your organizations and your companies. We also have another comment that this was one of the best panels I've ever heard. All panel members have answered questions with thought and great insight. Awesome questions too. So thank you guys so much for your time. And then Doug, we had a question. I believe this one is specifically to you, and then we'll conclude here. So we just wanted to give a huge thank you to our panelists. Thank you for giving up your time to help people understand your industries and just the demands that are within that. So Doug, does your company train for electrical work, or do you subcontract with people for that specifically?
So excellent question. So if it's low voltage, light electrical work, most of our technicians learn that in the field, and we teach them how to do that. If it requires like high voltage electricity and power and stuff like that, we subcontract those out to that specific trade, and we'll bring in a qualified electrician to work alongside our employees to get the job done.
All right. Well, thank you very much. There's one question, how often we have these chats. This was the first one of this specific format, but we'll definitely keep everybody updated when we do have more. And we will conclude with one last comment. Just wanted to say thank you to all of the employers. This was very informative. So on that, we will end on the high note, and you guys all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you again to the panelists for your time. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.